opened its doors in 1935, March the 11th, 1935, and immediately the Bank of Canada then started printing real legal tender that was printed on behalf of the people, and they started to end the Depression of the 30s by sending out checks of legal tender then to the farmers across the West or to various places where people needed workers to pay the workers. In my own experience, I know that my dad was getting $20 a month for grading a roadside, and this was real legal tender. And the Depression in Canada started to come to an end at that point. So that was 37, 38. We were coming out of the Depression while other parts of the world were still burdened. During the war years, we actually created the third largest navy in the world. This was by putting everybody to work. And money represents what people create. Of course, we were destroying so much of what we were creating, but nevertheless, because we were using our own money, we did not go into any great national debt. And I have a chart here that will show the history of the Bank of Canada from its creation, or particularly from 1940, until it got to removed from proper use by the international banking cartel, and then our debt began to rise. Now, this is my history, actually, of my life. I was born in 1928, and I recall the Depression years, and the Bank of Canada was created, as I said, in 1934. The war started in 1939, and the government then was producing all the money that was needed to build the factories, to build the airplanes, and to build the ships. And as you can see by this graph, and this is from Statistics Canada, the figures, we did not peak high for a national debt. And once the war ended, the soldiers who came back were all put to work. They were either given a university education, free tuition, or they were given a VLA, which is a Veterans Land Act grant, to go into business or start a farming. And this was all money given on behalf of the people to the people who returned. And to keep everyone busy at that point, we built the St. Lawrence Seaway. We built the Trans-Canada Highway. We built the railways. We did own the CNR at that time, and it was our national railway. We continued to create up to about 37% of our national money was spent into existence to create infrastructure and social services. During this period of time, we gave family allowance for families, for children's benefit. We built up the colleges. We brought in old age pensions, and we brought in Medicare. Now, that continued very nicely. The government funding from the Bank of Canada, and the Bank of Canada spending the money into existence. And at this point, the international bankers, the Bank for International Settlements and the World Bank and the IMF started to put the squeeze on politicians and said, you are encroaching on the services that the banks give. You should not be printing the money that the people need. We should be. And immediately we started to go into debt. And these figures only go to 1987. However, the debt actually rose up to $600 billion, but in 1987, our national debt stood at $523.3 billion. This is the history of Canada. Now, from here, there was There were no food banks in Canada that I knew of. There were no homeless people. Lotteries were illegal. We didn't have to have runs to finance medical care or cancer research. Canada thrived through those years. We also set up Canada as a peacekeeping nation during those years. So we have a proud history from 1935, basically, until about 1974. And I would like to point out that here, in 1974, our national debt stood at a mere $18 billion. During this period of time, a lot of Canadian companies could be self-financing. Once the international bankers began to get control of policy through government, get control of government, the international bankers, the private banks, encouraged expansion of Canadian-owned industries. Oh, you can borrow from us. The process of putting nations, putting corporations, putting companies, putting peoples into debt began. And from that point on, the encouragement was, well, borrow from us. No one seemed to realize that when they borrowed from a private entity like that, that was not real money. That was putting your own assets at risk. And as a result, we lost the Canadian National Railways through this. And Canadian National Railways was just such an incredible railway system. It just crisscrossed the country in more ways with spur lines than our highways are today. And they serviced the people. But that was got rid of, and so goods and services now are transported by truck rather than rail, and we do not own Canadian National Railways anymore. The only thing Canadian about it is that it's still called Canadian National Railways. Oh, I like to think of Canada, what Canada would look like if we got control of our money system. We would not sell any schools to finance education. We would build more schools. We would get smaller classes. We would build the best educational tools and install them into the schools so that people understood, our children grew up understanding what a rich land we are and understanding principally what qualities of life they can have if they get the benefit of their labors through life. We would have no unemployment. We would have lots of holiday time, but we'd keep everyone working, and everyone would be producing according to their own natural inner creative abilities. And yes, we'd recognize that there are some people who haven't been as fortunate as others with their mental abilities, but there is a place for everyone, and we would find that place, and we would be a happy, happy land. We would not exploit territories for profit. Ethical financing means that we are evolving to a higher moral standard, and that is a good thing. Dr. Muhammad Yunus is a perfect example with his bank, which actually deals in billions of dollars now.
Poverty is not caused by the poor people. Poverty is caused by the system we built. Poverty is caused by the policies that we pursue.
Grameen Bank has made a significant contribution to reducing poverty in Bangladesh. Since Grameen's creation in the 1970s, life expectancy has risen more than 20 years. The fertility rate has been cut in half. It is estimated that each year, 200,000 Grameen members and their families escape poverty.
That process has been used effectively. We don't need that kind of thing in Canada because we already do create our own money through the Bank of Canada. We just don't make use of the Bank of Canada because it's not, our governments don't control the banking and the creation of money. But alternate banking systems do exist, and they are very effective where people can manage to hold it together.